Revelation 2:9 and Zechariah 12:7. Jesus is speaking to the church in Smyrna in Revelation 2:9. I know thy works and tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich, and I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan. And I spoke about this synagogue of Satan yesterday being certain northern tribes of Israel that went into Baal worship, and to this day they are the lost tribes of Israel. Most never returned to Israel, and they are still conducting the Canaanite Baal worship, the worship of Lucifer. And they are the synagogue of Satan. They have no right to call themselves Jews because the word Jew comes from Judah, which was the southern kingdom, Benjamin and the tribe of Benjamin and Judah. And the other scripture points to the future. The Lord, this is Zechariah 12:7. The Lord also shall save the tents of Judah first, that the glory of the house of David and the glory of the inhabitants of Jerusalem do not magnify themselves against Judah. Now, when the Lord Jesus returns, there is going to be a remnant that will be converted and believe in him. But before that time, this synagogue of Satan, which will return to Israel and set up the kingdom of the Antichrist, will be persecuting the tribe of Judah and even attempt to steal the birthright from them. I'm not sure exactly how this will work out, whether they will claim that Judah does not really carry the messianic line, that it was diverted somewhere else. But they are going to attempt to put their own Messiah on the throne and dispense with the tribe of Judah. Of course, God is not going to permit that, because here he says, I will save the tents of Judah first. And so when we're talking about this conspiracy, common usage is to just refer to the Jews as a single unit. But there is a deep division within Jewry, or I should say the house of Israel. And the Israelites are not divided. The conspiracy is on the part of a faction, a rather large faction within ancient Israel towards their brothers, the house of Judah. And so, as I'm going through this, keep this in mind. When I say Jew, it's just because it's custom to me and to all of us to refer to those descendants of Abraham as Jews. But please make this distinction in your mind about the Zionist, with an S, Zion, conspiracy. It's called Zionist because the tribe of Dan migrated northward from their territory on the coast to Mount Sion, S-I-O-N, which is Mount Hermon. It says in Deuteronomy, Mount Hermon, which is Zion. And this was the location where it is believed that the fallen angels came down to earth and mated with human women, and where the whole Canaanite worship came about. And the tribe of Dan preferred that Baal worship to the worship of the true God. And so it is this tribe of Dan which was dispersed during the Assyrian captivity and migrated up through Greece into Europe and to the British Isles, and then on to the New World, which is the United States of America now. So there really are lost tribes. This tribe of Dan, this synagogue of Satan, has not been just biding their time. They have been infiltrating Christianity. They started, I believe, in the first century. They infiltrated the Christian church in Rome. I've done a lot of research on this. I grew up Roman Catholic, And I always wondered why the Roman Catholic Church was so Judaized. So many of the traditions within Roman Catholicism you can trace right back to the Old Testament. And so I got serious about researching this, and I wrote a report on it, and I was astounded. That report is on our website. It's called Mystery Babylon, Catholic or Jewish. And I discovered that the Jews were very busy what I mean is the Synagogue of Satan. I don't mean Judah. Infiltrating the Roman Church. Paul spoke about them in his letters to the churches, the Judaizers, how they persistently followed him from city to city, and how he had to defend the faith against these Judaizers. And but I realized as I got researching that they did succeed in infiltrating the Roman Church, and were instrumental in causing the persecutions of Christians. And that is the reason that I believe that the Roman Catholic Church came about. And all through these many centuries, they have been gradually moving what was then Christendom from Judaism into Kabbalism, Babylonian worship, the idols, the Marian worship, the miracles, the Immaculate Conception, just one Babylonian heresy after another, to the point where the Pope is infallible, where he controls much of the world. And then after the Middle Ages were over and the Reformation took place, even the Reformation was thoroughly infiltrated with Rosicrucians. Then again, the Synagogue of Satan, just in another form. The Rothschilds have gotten control, probably had control from the beginning. As soon as they formed the House of Rothschild, they now control the Vatican Bank. And all kinds of secret societies are connected to the Vatican, the P2, Opus Dei, which I'm going to get into probably in the second half of this. The Murano phenomenon. During the Middle Ages, the Synagogue of Satan, many of their agents were popes. There were many, I want to say Jewish popes, but they were really Synagogue of Satan. They were Merovingian popes. And they would get into the papacy, and then they would issue orders that all of the Jews had to convert to Roman Catholicism. They either had to be baptized or they were killed. And of course, it looked like the Gentiles were doing this. So you would have massive conversions of Jews. They had no choice. It was either die or convert. So they would be baptized, and they would carry on their Old Testament rites very secretly, but they would go to church. Well, what the end result of this was massive numbers of Jews coming in to the churches. And then some of them were conversos. They did this under pain of death. They did it only because they had to, but a lot of it was to make way for Jews to infiltrate and then rise to the clergy and to become priests and then bishops, then cardinals, then popes. So what you had was the takeover of Christendom by this Synagogue of Satan. Now, one of their members was Ignatius of Loyola. He was a member of the Alumbrados in Spain, which were also called the Illuminati, and he was the son of Murano Israelites. So the whole Jesuit order is not really a Gentile order. All of the horrible things that they have done can be traced back to Ignatius, who was a Marrano, who was Illuminati. Another of their number was John Calvin. And I want to read something that was published. It's taken from the convention of the B'nai B'rith that was held in Paris in 1936, where they claim that Calvin was one of their own. It reads, "We are the fathers of all revolutions, even of those which sometimes happen to turn against us. We are the supreme masters of peace and war. We can boast of being the creators of the Reformation. Calvin was one of our children. He was of Jewish descent and was entrusted by Jewish authority and encouraged with Jewish finance to draft his scheme in the Reformation." But this is out of the B'nai B'rith proceedings at their conference in 1936. Now, this Synagogue of Satan has been busy not only infiltrating Christendom, but setting up their own religions and cults all over the world. Mormonism is one of them. Mormonism is very strongly British Israel, very Judaized form of Christianity, very interested in genealogies. Joseph Smith surrounded himself with a group of 12 apostles, and his three highest members in that group of Kabbalists were Kabbalists. So his inner circle were Kabbalists, and I would wager that Joseph Smith himself was of the Synagogue of Satan himself. Many times, these conversos or Marranos would adopt Gentile surnames.
I actually spent a lot of time growing up with Mormon students, friends, colleagues, and was surrounded more by Mormonism, a culture of Mormonism, than Judaism in the small Jewish community that I lived in Mesa, Arizona. And during that time, I never would have imagined that Jewish mysticism would appear in any way in the Mormon tradition. And what I want to talk about today are the ways in which the appearance of Jewish mysticism or Kabbalah in many different places, because we do find it emerging in a lot of surprising locations, maybe shouldn't be as surprising to us after all. The role of Kabbalah in the development of a lot of Jewish and Christian religious forms is something that we see starting in the Middle Ages. And we tend to think of Jewish mysticism as a secret.
Don't be fooled. There are huge numbers of these Zionists in our leadership in every area, mainly politics, law, where they can operate as change agents. Seventh-day Adventism is another religion that they invented. Now, I just want to read something very interesting that I found on the internet about these Zionists, because they claim to be Jews, but they really are this bloodline that came out of Mount Hermon. And if you remember in Genesis 6, the fallen angels descended, I believe, or they believe, on Mount Hermon and mated with human women and created a hybrid race, a demonized race that God had to destroy. Now, when the Danites went up, relocated to Mount Hermon, or Mount Zion, I believe that this went on again, that this dragon bloodline continued through them. And they even make claims to be the dragon bloodline, the bloodline of Lucifer. They make these claims in their books. There's a lot on our website about this. But I just want to read a quote. This was just on an internet forum, but sometimes you can get tremendous information that just corroborates everything else you read. It is well understood that pro-Zionist Illuminatus in Britain have been working hard for centuries to mesh the Jews and the Christians together for this very purpose of millennial rule in a movement called British Israelism. This movement was created by Rosicrucians from as early as John Dee's alliances with Queen Elizabeth in the 16th century. The Rosicrucians were a cult of the dragon bloodline, seeking to make the British peoples believe that they were of Jewish blood in efforts to disguise their own bloodline. Everywhere in Britain, and particularly on the throne and in other leading roles, British Freemasonry and British Israelism go together like a snake coiled around its nest of eggs. That's the crux of British Israelism. In other words, an attempt of the dragon bloodline to ascend the throne of Israel and the biblical millennium, which it could not so easily do under the true banner of Gog or dragon bloodline. But we wouldn't expect them to stop with British Israelism. Why not also European Israelism, which the Catholic Apostolic Church promoted? Why not Anglo or American Israelism, as the Mormons and some Seventh-day Adventists promoted? My logic is that we just follow the British Israel eggs in order to keep track of movements made by the Illuminati snake. I thought that was very well stated. So this Zionist movement, the Synagogue of Satan, have not stopped there even. They have infiltrated the evangelical denominations. They are leading many of our parachurch organizations. They have infiltrated and are controlling the charismatic movement, charismatic cults such as the End Time Handmaidens and the Strategic Prayer Network, and I believe that they're even in control of Messianic Judaism.
So what are we going to see in this video?
So there was a video online of Rabbi John Kahn at a church actually in Alabama. It's Church of His Presence. It's led actually by Pastor John A. Kilpatrick. I think we've had him on as a guest.
Are you serious? This is John Kilpatrick's church?
Yes, it's going to be inside his church. Oh. And what you're going to see is Rabbi Kahn is conducting what is considered an Aaronic blessing.
Organizations to pay for all of this. And they have to get the Jews out of the United States in order to set up their false messianic kingdom over there in Israel. And the Jews in the United States are very comfortable at this point. They don't want to go. So they have to create the conditions that will motivate them to go. And I talked yesterday about how it's going to become the United States is going to become so dysfunctional that the Jews will gladly flee the U.S. And they are going to, they're in the process now of getting Christians to pay for what they call Aliyah, that is, Jews immigrating from the United States to Israel. For example, the International Fellowship of Christians and Jews recently gave $2 million towards this effort. But keep in mind, before you contribute to any of this, that the Jews are going to encounter the false Christ in Israel when they get there, and the false prophet, and the mark of the beast, and a host of other counterfeits